Cannabis sativa is one of the most widely known plants in the world, and for good reason. Cannabis comes from Central Asia, where it has been written about for millenniums. It's one of the most widely known about medicines and has been used since the dawn of mankind. Since its discovery, it has been spread around the world, studied by doctors, ethnobotanists, textile industries, and written about by scholars from all walks of life. In some parts of the world, it's perfectly okay to use this plant recreationally or medicinally. It's used in many places just for fun, and while for others it's used to save their lives. However, in some countries, you can be in prison for small amounts of this plant, even if you're just using it to better your own life and to help free yourself from the diseases that are inflicting you. Some people have served life for just trying to help people with this plant. The history and effects of this plant are often used as an arm for propaganda. Most of the education in most educational systems is normally wrong, misleading, and just used for fear. The forefathers of the United States and many leaders around the world that led us into this century that we are in now enjoyed the use of cannabis not only for its psychoactive properties and medicinal properties, but because of the fact that it was so versatile and was able to be used in almost every single industry to make life better for everyone. However, it eventually became illegal. Spearheaded by the United States, it eventually became illegal within the United Nations as well. This was due to corporations using it as a wing of propaganda to fight against certain people and to be used as a force for corporate wealth. Fake movies were put out as a warning to people, as an overzealous attempt to make people afraid of a plant that they did not understand. It was used as a distraction. It was used as a way to imprison us and to distract our society from the evil doings that were going on within our own government and within corporations that were slowly taking over. One of the big perpetrators of this crime at the era in which cannabis was made illegal was the timber industry, which was afraid of the textile capabilities of the hemp plant. Due to the recent manufacturings that were becoming increasingly available at the time, hemp would have outplaced timber long ago if they had not put out such films as Reefer Madness to make it seem as though that cannabis was deadly and caused derangement and would have destroyed society at its fabric. These same people were using cannabis to increase racial tensions, to make people more afraid of African Americans, Latinos, and the Chinese. It made them seem as if cannabis was making him go crazy when in fact nothing was happening at all, oftentimes. It was used as a fear-mongering attempt to cause more racial divides and to push the aristocracy of the European descent within America and other continents. Even then they knew of the medicinal properties of the plant. But to them, they knew if they could make it illegal, that they could completely radicalize a whole group of people, that they could shape the society for the way that they'd want to be. They knew that they could hold on to their aristocracy even longer. It was a way to increase an egalitarian rule for the upper class. The truth is, though, it's very easy to see past the absurdities that were made, especially now in a time where science is becoming more mainstream and public education is more available to anyone through the access of the internet. Now that we don't have to listen to falsehoods and we do not have to fall to complacencies from the upper class, we're able to see past certain lies and propagandas to realize for ourselves that this plant was made illegal for entirely the wrong reasons and to push people out of control. And while I wish I could say that the complexities that cause this illegalization, that the racial falsehoods and people trying to just cause the destruction of whole entire groups of people and to continue a power for people that did not even care about the majority, then I would be lying. Because even in modern day times, they've used the plant as a wing of propaganda to cause more destruction, to keep themselves in power, to stop people from rising up against them. When Nixon created the war against drugs, what he essentially did was he made a brand new arm of government known as the DEA. He used that with a mixture of the CIA and other platforms to create a whole new landscape of money making for the underground government within the United States. What they did was they used the money from drugs and they funneled it. They funneled it to other countries to cause wars in other countries to increase its stake there. And they did all this for corporate profits from lobbyists in several different places. While Nixon started the drug war, many presidents followed in his place, continuing the travesty that was going on by using drugs as a means to lock people up. And what most people didn't know at the time, and which was found out by the Iran-Contra and many other different instances, was that the CIA and other government organizations were in fact the ones making the money off of manufacturing and selling the drugs to its own citizens. And then using them, the people that they got addicted to drugs, to make further profits within 4 private prisons. They wanted to create a radicalized nation to lock them up, to create more power for themselves. And they put cannabis on there because they knew that it wasn't as dangerous as a lot of the other drugs. They knew that more people used it. They knew it was the cash crop of the world. And they knew with that, they could control even more people. And that they could devastate society in its entirety. They knew without marijuana that most of the arrests that they were making would disappear. They knew that law enforcement would have to be completely changed. They knew that the judicial branch would have to be completely changed. Because without all these arrests, what were these people that they had already hired to do? They would displace thousands upon thousands of workers. And they were using them to further their wealth. So what did they do? They buckled down even further. Eventually, the states become all the wiser and started to fight back against the federal government. In the meantime, they were using these policies to change the landscape of the psychology of an entire nations by grabbing the youngest people that they could and arresting them. They knew if they continued to do this, that they could have more control over them throughout generations. And they knew that cannabis wasn't nearly as dangerous as the drugs that they were already pushing on people. But the lobbyists within Congress continued to push for more laws against plants that they knew barely caused any harm compared to the products that they were already pushing onto the public. They were afraid of losing profits. They weren't afraid of our safety. And the more we study this plant, the more we realize its potential benefits for medical uses, not just from its psychoactive parts of THC, but also within CBD. It's been shown to help in remarkable ways that we never originally thought were possible. And decrease inflammation, help people with cancer, help people with seizures. The list goes on and on and on of its medicinal uses. Slowly, it's starting to replace different pharmaceuticals because of the power of its use, because of its ability to treat so many diseases, so many illnesses. It's becoming once again a part of mainstream society as we slowly peel away the propaganda that's been pushed on us for centuries. Slowly but surely, governments are starting to wake up and realize the actual benefits of this plant, how unfair it is to imprison people for trying to treat themselves with the plant for medical problems that they were born with or they inherited throughout their lifetime. And slowly and surely, people are starting to realize that recreationally, it's not nearly as dangerous as the things that are already in place within society, that are already legal. However, that's not the case everywhere, where some people are still being thrown into prison just for trying to treat themselves and treat their conditions and trying to make their lives more bearable because of a disease that they couldn't control. And yet, because of this, they're facing the short time that they have left, oftentimes behind bars. The facts, though, have become so heavy that the original organizations that were created to continue to suppress it are now having to come forward and explain that it actually does have benefits for people, even though originally they were completely against it. However, there are still huge absurdities within the law, where people are being arrested for parts of the plant that are not even psychoactive and cannot even be used recreationally, but can only be used medicinally. People are being charged and thrown behind bars for having something that doesn't even get people high, something that only treats disease, something that never even had to have an original plant that was illegal. In the cases of cannabis and hemp, where CBD was made from hemp, and then the people carrying it were arrested for having it. A lot of this is due to pharmaceutical lobbyists taking control of state and federal governments for their own means, because they know that cannabis is a danger to their profits. Cannabis is cheap to grow, easy to grow, and has significant benefits that outweigh its risks, especially in comparison to the already made drugs by the pharmaceutical companies that are oftentimes quite dangerous to the biology of humans. However, they're fighting a losing battle. The general public has already spoken, and while at one time less of them wanted it to be legal than illegal, now that's changed, where more people want it to be legal, and significantly more people want it to be medicinally legal. Now that the propaganda has been slowly fading away and people are starting to see the plant for what it truly is and starting to see these corporations for what they truly are, the tides of change are coming because of the opinions of people. In the meantime, though, private prison corporations are raking it in. They're using cannabis as a weapon against society, and they've been doing so for too long. This travesty should have never even taken place. They're using cannabis as a way to enslave people to make huge profits. And these people are the same people helping the pharmaceutical companies suppress cannabis use within that industry as well. These huge, massive conglomerates are working together. What they're trying to do is create a prison planet. They want whole generations suppressed because it's easier for them to control, especially in areas where they can slap on a felony, take away your voting rights for just having a plant. A plant that was doing no one any harm. Because they've figured out how to best control the populations. Because they've been doing it for years upon years. And even now, they're still using it as a way to persecute people of color and immigrants, to lock them up, to destroy households, even though the same amount of people use them that are not from an ethnic background. They're using it to completely de-establish entire generations growing up from other countries, even though people from European descent are not native to America. And regardless, it's wrong to persecute someone based off the color of their skin or their cultural backgrounds in the first place. It's completely unethical. Yet they continue to do so to push the divide between people so they can continue controlling the masses and radicalizing future generations. Drug use is pushed within media, sometimes just because of its recreational use, sometimes for its medicinal use. Sometimes it's made as a thing to heal, sometimes it's made as a thing for relaxation. But the one thing that's completely true is it's not a thing that's based upon color or anything like that. It's just a substance that's used by many, that's used as a way to villainize entire cultures and entire people. But people who are waking up and they're realizing the absurdities of it all. And because of that, society is changing for the better. Even though most people have tried it, federal governments around the world and the United Nations still consider it an offense to have this plant. They're calling a huge amount of people criminals just for trying a plant that has massive amount of benefits with a slight amount of risk. And if you're sick, why wouldn't you want to try something that has a minimal amount of side effects compared to a pill that you can get? Something that's 100% natural, easy to grow, cheap, can be easily accessible. Why wouldn't someone want to try it if they were in those circumstances? And it doesn't even have to be used as a drug for medicine or for recreational use. It's also used as a herb, as a food. And it does quite well at that because of its ability to decrease inflammation. It actually has a very high nutritional profile. And almost every part of the plant can be used, from its seeds to its roots to its leaves. It's filled with antioxidants, good fats, and proteins. Every different part of the plant having a different nutritional profile than the last. It is very diverse as a medicine, as a food, as a textile. Almost every faucet that it can be used, it has an ability. That's not to say that it's not capable of being abused. However, it's very unlikely, and the risks are not quite as perverse as any other medicine or recreational drug. In fact, in relation to most things, it's one of the safest substances on the planet. A lot of the negative effects can actually simply be taken out by not smoking, but by opting for other choices if you're using it for its psychoactive effects. Instead of smoking, you can vape it, or you can eat it. You even use it as a cream. There's several different options that have been utilized throughout thousands of years. Now, while not all those side effects can be combated, a lot of them can. The truth of the matter is its benefits greatly outweigh its risks several times over. It could make the world a better place. And it's kind of ironic, especially for nations, to consider themselves free to lock up thousands upon thousands of citizens for using a plant that helps them get through the day and makes them feel more alive, increases their productivity because they're not in pain, or even to make something illegal that is simply used just to relax with minimal side effects to their own health or to the safety of others. And what we're truly waiting for is on the judgment of law to decide whether or not a whole population that has already decided for themselves what they want. So right now we're just waiting for that judgment call, for the law to decide to do what is right. And that may never happen if we don't push the people that are in control, that do not care about the general population, out. If we do not get rid of the corrupt lobbyists within our Senate and within the White House and within the control of other nations around the world, then we may never see that brighter future that just a single plant can bring. And it's really up to the sovereign states and their own citizens to make that determination for themselves. And it needs to be done democratically. Hopefully, we can have a brighter future. If you like this video, please thumbs up and subscribe. Check out some more of my videos and leave a comment about what you think. Have a terrific day.